So I guess this is where we're at. Konami is just going to re-release old games and do a decent or better job at it. If that plan continues to involve games like Castlevania Advance Collection, fair enough. It's really important to understand why a lot of people are freaking out over the Castlevania Advance Collection: price and convenience. All 3 Game Boy Advance Castlevania entries are kind of legendary in their own right. They've racked up a hefty amount of retro cred over the years since they were released, roughly 2 decades for the lot and even more for Dracula X, and are generally worth a good chunk of change even as loose old carts. Aria of Sorrow is the Prince of Precious, as it could still sell for over $100 for legit copies as recently as this past week. Meanwhile, this collection, which also features the more often re-released Dracula X, is $20. And although Konami already has a decent track record with re-releases, it's shockingly good. This is pretty much an on-point retro re-release, as all 4 games are preserved very well, feature responsive controls, and benefit from some extras. Let's talk about the games, because let's face it, not everyone got to play them at launch. Circle of the Moon is a fascinating Castlevania, because you can see the light bulbs go off at nearly every turn. As Nathan Graves, in one of the few departures of playing as a Belmont, just like Aria of Sorrow, you'll traverse Dracula's castle once again in the Metroidvania format that would, at this point, define the series. Released just 4 years after Symphony of the Night changed the face of the franchise, Symphony DNA is all over Circle of the Moon. While the early game is fairly basic, kind of like Symphony of the Night with a whip wielder, it really opens up. Nathan is a great mix between a classic Vampire Slayer archetype, with sub-weapons to boot, but he also sports the equipment system from Symphony, as well as some tricks of his own. As a magic wielder, Nathan can combine cards, which are earned by defeating enemies, which provide different power-ups and passive abilities. It's really addicting, because the more you earn, the more you can customize your build. While the level design isn't as flashy as its successor, it's still very much worth playing based on its own merits. Next up is Harmony of Dissonance, which steps up things in several regards and gets us back to the Belmont clan with protagonist Juiced. The maps are a little snappier and more varied, and Juiced can do some really cool things with his whip as you progress, which heightens the combat system. As another magic-sensitive hero, Juiced wields special books that are more traditionally located throughout the map, which bestow abilities. There's plenty of debates as to which is better, Harmony or Circle, but Aria of Sorrow puts a stop to any discussion regarding all 3, as it generally wins without incident. Aria of Sorrow, simply put, is worth the entry fee by itself. Featuring fan favorite Soma Cruz, the narrative is turned on its head as Soma is an unsuspecting teenage transfer student and an unlikely lead. It makes for a more engaging story, as we're experiencing the world alongside of Soma, not someone who is trained as a killing machine, all to the tune of a bizarre 2035 backdrop. We also get the Soul System, which is a natural progression of the magic mechanics of the prior 2 GBA entries, and applies to multiple facets of Soma's build. In short, it has one of the most fun and open-ended build systems in any Castlevania, on top of fantastic level design. Between Soma, the foundational gameplay, and the castle itself, Aria of Sorrow has it all. Dracula X is the odd game out here, as it's a purely traditional level-based platformer with some extreme twists. It's kind of like a supercharged classic Castlevania, fitting given that it was released on the Super Nintendo, with stylistic intense music plussed up sub-weapons and supers akin to a fighting game. Reception to Dracula X has been historically positive, but many consider it infamously difficult. Your mileage may vary, but I consider its inclusion a bonus. All 4 titles benefit from an emulation menu that's both uniform and useful. You can save and load up to 10 states on top of the bait-and save features. Tweak the screen a bit, toggle extra information like which card ability enemy can grant you when killing them, change the wallpaper, check the Encyclopedia for info, and swap your controls around. The latter 2 are paramount in grasping why this compilation rules. The Encyclopedia is extensive for the Metroidvanias, providing at-a-glance info for every single item or enemy in the game. You can pour over it for minutes at a time and not get bored, and it serves as a fantastic tutorial for total newcomers. And given how there's some inside baseball afoot, it's for the best. The control swapping option is also much appreciated. Every single button can be changed to something else, and it's immensely helpful for the GBA games that have limited buttons. It essentially adds functionality to those games if you can trigger quick shortcuts with a more helpful button you're comfortable with. You can also rewind the game with a quick button combo while you're playing, no clunky separate menus. It's very streamlined and can be done instantly to save a run and or a boss fight, without annoyingly interrupting your game. So you have 3 lengthy Metroidvanias and a platforming classic to take up your time, on top of a few other extras. If you're keen to listen to some tunes, you can queue up the music player, which is especially rad on the portable Switch. Each game also has an American, European, and Japanese edition toggles, with separate saves, and there's a gigantic image dump to scroll through. The dump really is something, as Konami packed in a ton of concept art, as well as full-on manuals in multiple languages. If you ever played or rented these games during their original release eras, the nostalgia will hit you like a truck. Castlevania Advance Collection really showcases a side of Konami we don't see very often anymore. On one hand, they trot out old franchises with low-effort projects and try to essentially trick people into buying them. On the other, they are capable of putting out old games in a format that's not just well-crafted, but also seeks to preserve classics that you can't easily find. The company is an enigma, but you know what isn't? Destructoid.com. There you can find even more written reviews, news, and more. And of course, as always, thank you for watching.